Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar, Energy Efficiency and Net Zero for Heritage Buildings. Really glad you can join us. We're going to be looking at some real solutions today. Just before we start, I wanted to introduce myself. So I'm David Shealy, Director of the Manchester-based Energy Innovation Agency. And I'll do a quick introduction in a minute to the agency. But before then, I just wanted to say that we've got some really great speakers today who are going to support a practical discussion on how you can improve energy efficiency and cut carbon in heritage buildings through innovation. So briefly, the Energy Innovation Agency is a public-private partnership created about 4 years or so ago here in Greater Manchester to accelerate the clean energy transition. And really briefly, what we do is we work with energy innovators to help them scale and deploy and commercialize their solutions, working with buyers and organizations in the private sector and public sector to help them reduce, cut energy costs and cut carbon. So just looking at the agenda for today, I'm just going to quickly run through it. So I'm going to hand over in a minute to my colleague, Kevin Aisbett, who's running a fireside chat, and we'll hear from Maria from the University of Salford and Ian from Vacuum Glazing Network around the challenges and opportunities in the heritage sector. Then we will hear from another innovator, from James at Corksol, who will talk about their energy efficient spray insulation. And then we'll hear from Matthew from EcoDriver about their energy and carbon saving platform. And then after the presentations, we probably have around 10 minutes for some audience Q&A. So I would encourage anyone in the audience, if you do have questions, please, I think if you see the bottom of your screen in the middle, there is a chat box. If you want to add any questions you got into the chat box, we'll do our best to respond to those questions and pick them up at the end. And any that we don't cover, we'll aim to respond to afterwards. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kevin Aisbett from who's leading the fireside chat. Thanks very much.
Hi, my name's Kevin Aisbett. I'm Innovation Project Manager at the Energy Innovation Agency, and welcome to this fireside chat with Maria and Ian, where we're going to discuss approaches and factors to consider when looking at the heritage building sector. If we just go straight in to the conversation, Maria, could I ask you just to make a quick introduction, please?
Hello, and thank you for your kind invitation. I'm Dr. Maria Eudoniakovidis, lecturer in architecture design and program leader of architecture engineering at the University of Salford. I'm also an RIBA chartered architect and ARB registered architect with professional experience working over a decade as an architect, conservation officer. I was awarded a BSc in architecture engineering from the National Technical University of Athens, MA in historic building conservation from the University of York, and a PhD in architecture from Liverpool University. At Salford, I'm part of our School of Science, Engineering and Environment, which is well known for technical education and academic research. And as you may know, we have two very well-known research centers, the Energy House 2 and Acoustic Labs. Energy House 2 has received funding, national and international, and many awards, including the Queen Elizabeth Prize for Education in 2025. So I'm representing an amazing university. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Maria. Ian?
So, yeah, thanks, Kevin, for the invite. My name's Ian Henderson. I'm the Managing Director of the Vacuum Glazing Network, where we supply predominantly passive glass vacuum glazing, a form of insulated glass to rival triple glazing, but in a much thinner profile, which is highly suited for heritage buildings.
Great, thanks, Ian. Just continue with yourself, Ian. Really just to understand your experience of the heritage building sector and what you see what are the challenges and some of the opportunities.
Yeah, okay. So we've completed work on lots of heritage buildings nowadays, and what we find now is that people want the best of both worlds with a heritage property, and they're looking to not only keep the aesthetics of these buildings, which they quite rightly should, but they want the performance nowadays. So that performance is in thermal, acoustic, just general comfort in the building itself, and the overall longevity of these windows as well. So the options that they've had previously have been maybe a slim double glazed, which can have a 1 or 2 year guarantee, and then you're ripping them back out again. I mean, that's not good for the building itself. They've got lots of problems with condensation cascading down the inside of the glass, because it's hugely the dew point in the room. So any moisture within that room just gets attracted straight to the window, and just they're just looking to reduce their heating costs now more than ever, because of the cost of energy these days. And so what we're finding now is that people are doing their own due diligence before even contacting a window company and finding out how they can improve. And hopefully vacuum glazing is coming up as one of the key factors that they can improve on. But it works the same with cooling as well. So our glass can reduce the solar heat gain as well, which from single glazing is it's literally like night and day, the difference in the performance levels of this glass. And so what we're generally finding is that as much as everybody wants to maintain the beauty of these buildings, they're looking for performance nowadays as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ian. And the same question to yourself, Maria.
Thank you. I have worked on conservation and restoration projects of grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 2 listed buildings in the UK. And also I have been an active member of heritage organizations like the Institute of Historic Building Conservation since 2008, RIBA Conservation and Heritage Sustainability Group since 2021, and most recently the UK ICOMOS as a representative in 2025. So as a conservation professional, in my experience, some of the key challenges in retrofitting heritage buildings are, first of all, navigating the listed status and planning permissions and balancing this energy efficiency and historic significance that Ian mentioned earlier as well. The second one is the high cost of conservation and restoration. And that is amount because of the lack of materials that we have and specialist skills, especially craftsmen. The third one is unpredictability, some hidden challenges, areas that we could not survey, or sometimes accidents that happen. For example, you do know the Notre Dame and also the Mackintosh School of Architecture in Glasgow. The other challenge is the technical one, which is the difficulty in improving energy efficiency without major interventions. So, for example, increasing insulation and moisture management to achieve breathability may not be a straightforward job, so we do need specialists. The last one is the protection of the historic fabric of any damage. And of course, the sympathetic and reversible interventions that can enhance the heritage significance aesthetically, spatially, and also functionally. So what are the solutions? One of the most important things is the conservation survey and the research that we carry out before the project starts. So we have all the evidence to support a case study to the conservation officers. The other one is to seek expert advice and appoint experienced contractors. And the last one is regular communications with clients and local authorities. Also, we shouldn't forget that challenges can also become opportunities for innovation, and we have quite a lot of examples. Some of the very common challenges, myths and facts I would like to mention is one of them. A lot of people think as a myth that no change is permitted in heritage and listed buildings. So the fact is that sympathetic interventions are very much welcome. And after all, the only way to secure a building's future is to give it a new use. So we have to consider balancing modern needs and historic fabric, material compatibility and breathability, and structural integrity. So we have to respect the original features, the scale, the proportions, and the details and the finishes. Another myth is that heritage buildings cannot be energy efficient. So what is the fact? The energy performance certificate rating can be raised with very well-planned program, conservation friendly. And again, we have many examples, public, secular, and religious buildings. So what do we need to consider? Preserving architectural and historical integrity, and also reversible intervention. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Maria. Just staying with yourself, Maria, and you mentioned the myths, and I think you did touch upon it. So the next question really is around the planning process. Would you say it's straightforward?
Okay, right. We have our UK heritage organisations, as you know, Historic England, Historic Scotland, and Can-Do in Wales, who provide comprehensive advice and guidance and technical support on the planning process for listed and heritage buildings. And also we have additional guidance for places of worship, which is provided by their conservation officers like the diocese or the Methodist churches. Unfortunately, the planning system has variations and it is not consistent due to the different priorities of conservation officers. So the best strategy is to talk to an experienced heritage consultant and the conservation officers directly from the very early stages of a project. And this will provide relevant guidance, save time and money. I hope I answered the question.
That's great. Thanks, Maria. And Ian, in your experience?
Yeah, I think you've just answered that really well, Maria, in that although there seems to be a straightforward group of guidelines and a process that you need to go down, we've got clients who first asked us about their projects 2 years ago, and they still keep in touch to say they're still waiting. There's different appeals going through. So for us, we are seeing more areas where there's some forms of pre-approval. So a local listed building consent order, for example, that may allow vacuum glazing for our product, may allow vacuum glazing as long as you stick to the guidelines. But the one thing that we do find an awful lot is it seems to be like a postcode lottery, in that you may get one conservation officer who has a more pragmatic approach and another who literally sticks to the Heian document of Historic England, which is an advisory note, but they stick to it to the letter instead of interpreting it like we think it should be, and it's a guideline. So but we recently did a CPD, or I did in Bath, and they were so on board with bringing in new methods of construction, as long as they weren't affecting the aesthetics of the building, because these buildings have got to last another 100 years and then another 100 years, and they're not going to do so by staying in their current form. And we just think that if there's not a grown-up way of looking at this, most of these buildings will end up as museum pieces, because people they won't be able to afford to live in them, and they'll be too unhealthy to live in. So I think that there needs to be some improvement going forward in obviously maintaining the look of these buildings, but bringing them up to a standard which heritage officers need to understand that people need to live in these buildings, and I think it's one that they need to look at with open eyes that take into account that, look, you know, the people are trying their best to keep the historic integrity of these properties, but whilst making something that's fit to live in.
Great, thanks, Ian. Just following on from some of Ian's comments, Maria, and also what you touched upon when you mentioned around innovation, in particular some of the work that's going on in the Energy House labs at the university. What would be sort of your 2 to 3 top tips for an owner-operator looking at innovation, and why is innovation important to be considered when looking at the energy improvements within a building?
Thank you. I think I'm going to follow what Ian mentioned earlier and add, if I may. I think we have to consider that our listed buildings, they have to be fit for purpose. And as we all know, our society's needs and trends are changing rapidly, so we must meet the demand. The other consideration is we have to save our heritage buildings and secure their future for generations to come. And innovation will enhance these buildings' significance and also add social and economic values. And we have a lot of examples that they have done that. The third consideration is we need to meet our climate change mitigation targets. Fabric first, and that's the work that the Energy House too does as well. So using our existing building stock has a major contribution in net zero carbon, but also saves money. So that's my point of view.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Maria. And for yourself, Ian?
Yes, so my 3 would be sort of, firstly, don't look to make any dramatic or drastic changes to the building, because you're just not going to get anywhere with a conservation officer by doing that. And, you know, just to be respectful to the building whilst trying to upgrade it. And then when you are making these changes, I think you must always recognise the fact that these buildings were never meant to be airtight. They were never meant to be hugely thermally efficient. Most of them, you know, they might be 150, 200 years old, a lot of these buildings, and they've only been introduced to central heating in the last 20 years or so. And, you know, there'll be a lot of drying out of the building that wasn't there previously. So I think when you are introducing any kind of upgrade, that you do it in a holistic way, and you look at what effects your upgrade is going to have on the rest of the building, such as if you're making a sash window as airtight as you can, because, you know, by stopping the drafts and improving the thermal qualities of it, you must look to ventilate the property in a different way. And there are all kinds of new ways of doing that, rather than just putting a trickle vent in something which is improving the whole window and then just putting a hole in it. You know, it's quite an archaic way of doing it, but there are lots more interventions to do. And I think thirdly, as somebody who has an innovative product, it's just getting that product out there to the custodians of these buildings, to let them know that these products and these interventions exist, because I think a lot of these building either owners or companies looking after the buildings, whether that be in like the NHS or school or the diocese, wherever, they want to do the right thing by these buildings, but not all of them know that these products exist. We're still seeing new innovations, at every show we go to, when we do events with the Energy Innovation Agency, and we're seeing new products which amaze us all the time, So I think that there are a lot of people who don't know that these upgrades exist, and I think it's just getting it out there to them.
And just sort of carrying on that theme, Ian, looking at suppliers, what would be your advice to those companies looking to work in this sector?
I think it would be get involved with organisations like yourselves, the Energy Innovation Agency. I mean, this has opened so many doors to us, where we would have struggled to even get the right people to read an email. We might be able to contact an office of one of these organisations or something, but to actually get put in front of some of the people and decision makers that we've been able to just get to discuss our product, let them know how it can improve, how it can help. I think it's just getting involved with these organizations, get yourself to the shows, the exhibitions, wherever possible. There's that many of them. It's difficult to attend them all, but to map that out and see where you can best promote what you do.
Great, thanks, Ian. And the same question to yourself, Maria.
I agree 100% with Ian, and also if I can add, maybe collaborate with heritage professionals and organizations. So accredited architects in building conservation, RIBA conservation architects, surveyors and civil engineers, that they are doing this job every day. Also contact other heritage organizations and make them aware of this, like Historic England, IHBC, SPAB, because they can collaborate, they can use that information as well. And these organizations are also providing advice for restoration and repairs with different materials, for example, stone built, brick built, earth buildings, cast iron, steel, timber frame, or combination of these. So there is a lot of information, technical information that is needed basically in this sector. And I agree with Ian. Guidance and technical support is needed by trained professionals on retrofit, for example, integrating modern systems, solar panels, underfloor heating, Wi-Fi, heat pumps, insulation, double glazing, etc. And as you know, a lot of historic buildings have done already upgrading, retrofitting, energy efficiency. One example is the very recently the King's Chapel, Cambridge, which was built in 1515, and a few years ago has solar panels installed on the roof. So there are a lot of successful conservation projects, and these have a significant impact on the people and the place.
Yeah.
And the last one, please don't forget that heritage buildings are resilient, and challenges can become opportunities for you to enhance your skills and credentials and contribute to save this country's heritage for the future. So a positive note on that.
That's great. Thanks, Maria. That's really I suppose the end of some initial questions, but any sort of final thoughts that you'd like to convey to the audience, just on this subject, on areas that we may not have covered?
I think that would you like to go first then, Maria?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that credible companies with focus on delivering practical and ethical solutions to challenges should be trusted, in my opinion. And we know that most of them, their targets are focusing on innovation, and which is guided by research on energy and cost savings, carbon reduction, operational insights, behavior change, reduce of waste and electricity, renewable energy, building fabric solution, etc. So yeah, there is a lot of help out there and experience as well. Thank you.
Great. And Ian?
Okay, yeah. So I think for us it would be that anybody who is watching this who's interested in well, our product to upgrade a property, we're more than happy to do CPDs. We're more than happy to come and have a look at the properties for you to give you some guidance as to whether or not it's suitable for your property. We work with a lot of fantastic joinery companies up and down the UK who supply our product, and they are huge supporters of the heritage side of our buildings, you know, our historic buildings, and are looking to always maintain the integrity of those buildings, but realise again that they need upgrading. One of the great things about vacuum glazing is that it comes with a 15-year guarantee and a life expectancy of probably 30 plus years. And so once you install this, you can just forget about it. I mean, paint systems nowadays with newer windows, paint systems have 10-year guarantees. Everything now is it's a lot more future-proof, and you know can continue to keep you warm and you know for future generations. So I think anybody who's not sure about the product, please you know get in touch and we'll help you understand it better. But I think my final bit would be what Maria mentioned, is just to look at these innovations and go with them, because you know they've been tried and tested. We've tested extensively with the Energy Labs. We work closely with Energy House, and you know we got some rave reviews from the Energy House as a result of our testing. So these products work; they really do work, and you know there is a place for them in these buildings without doubt. And more often than not, it can be a much easier intervention than ripping everything out and starting again. You can literally just upgrade what you have and improve it dramatically.
Great. Thanks, Ian. Well, just finally, just thank you to Maria and Ian for taking the time to take part in this fireside chat. Both Maria and Ian will join us at the end of the webinar for a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, then that'll be an opportunity to pose them to both. But yeah, just thanks again, Maria, Ian, for the time that you've spent answering these questions and giving a real in-depth insight into things that you know companies and organisations need to consider, either working or owner-operators of heritage buildings, or those businesses trying to supply innovative products and services into that particular sector. So again, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you both. Thank you. See you later.
Maria. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Now I'd like to hand over to James Erskine from Coxall, who's going to give the first of our two innovative presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to be presenting for the Energy Innovation Agency. I always appreciate the opportunity. So my name's James. I work for a business called Coxall UK and Coxall Contracting. I'm head of sales, so I generally get involved in those that are specifying our product. So that gives me hopefully the ability to tell you all a little bit about our product and how we use it for older heritage type buildings. So I'll start with the problem that we see in insulation. So usually IWI in its more traditional form carries a lot of risk for older buildings. That's usually because we tend to use boarded materials or systems that give the ability for air and moisture to build in behind them. We struggle to keep heritage features of a building. And of course, this problem of trapping moisture into the fabric is a big problem for older properties. So we need to find a way to answer this, all of these problems in one go, which is what we've worked on at cork sol. Our product's called spray cork, and we apply it at around 6 millimeters thick. It essentially starts its life as the bark of a cork tree. The wine industry come along, they stamp out their wine stoppers from that bark, and we use their waste material. We granulate it up so we can keep the performance of cork, and then we can turn it into something that we can spray apply and stick to different surfaces. So we use it both externally and internally. And the product is what we describe as being truly sustainable. The beauty of a cork tree is you can take that raw material without felling the tree, and the tree will just regrow its bark layer, and you can repeat the process. So of course we're extremely passionate about using cork as a material. Our innovation is really in how we apply that product, and I'll move on to the reasons why it answers those questions on the first slide. Most of our product is made up of cork because that's where the performance comes from. And then I'm also showing the fact that the material remains vapor open, which is obviously extremely important for these types of housing and building stock. And then also our lambda value. The beauty of cork is that it does things at a microscopic level, so we can work at a much thinner and denser level than traditional forms of insulation would. It contains lots and lots of tiny little air pockets, and that's the bit that does the insulating. And it also makes it very flexible and gives it some quite unique properties, but we can gain quite a lot of performance from a thin layer. If you tried to compress a traditional form of insulation down, it would either break up or we would lose all its performance. Cork does the opposite. So when we apply product and we're installing at quite a thin layer, these are the types of performance results that we can get. So I've picked a couple of older buildings specifically here to demonstrate how we've improved those in a safe manner. So one of our most prestigious projects is called Church House in Westminster, and there it's an older building, and we've been able to spray that building internally, keep all the features, plaster over our material, encapsulate that form of insulation into the wall on a solid wall property, on a solid wall building. And then we did before and after U value test where we saw a 32% improvement in the U value. That's huge for that type of property because it's rather large. So the savings are huge, but we've also helped the client because there's basically no reduction in rentable space within that building as well. So our total thickness in that application was 6 millimeters plus 2 mil skim of plaster. So barely any noticeable difference in all of those room sizes. We also look quite heavily at air tightness because of the way that we apply product. I'll show another couple of pictures to demonstrate that. But on properties like vicarages, for example, we get that same reduction in U value. In this case 24%, but then really big gains in terms of air tightness. Again, these are very leaky properties and we focus a bit too heavily on U value sometimes, but we need to look at coverage and how we can make things more airtight in a safe manner. We still want to ventilate, we still want to reduce mold, which we can do with cork, but of course we need to stop that energy leaking out of the building. So couple those two things together and we can have a really big impact on some of these buildings. This is what we mean by spraying our material. So there's an air compressor, a hose, and a gun and a hopper. We mix our material up, we pour it into the hopper, and we can spray it onto any different surface. That could be a slope, a curve. So this was like a castle type scenario where all the walls were curved. How would you insulate that without creating a risk? And that's exactly the type of building that we work on. We can keep all the features. We're showing some windows, we're showing some beams. We can keep everything in play. We can stop air or moisture building behind it because the product will perfectly match what it's going on to, and then we can plaster over it and give a normal wall surface. So we're focusing a lot on internal use. It's usually not appropriate to spray the external of some of these properties, so that's the beauty of what we can do, is be flexible and move internally. That's just demonstrating what the cork looks like as a finished material, but we would plaster over that and you would just see a normal plastered finish which you could paint and redecorate and do whatever you wanted to do. Obviously we're using breathable finishes over the top of our product and even breathable paint, so we can build a specification to be really safe, really moisture safe. So this is why we work specifically on heritage buildings. So we can work thin enough that we can preserve what matters, and we can keep that building looking how it's meant to look, while still improving performance. And there's a lot of features in some of these buildings that is a real shame to cover up or remove. So we're able to avoid doing that, which is really quite unique. Of course, the way we spray apply product, and the reason that we don't use boards is because there's no joins, there's no breaks. That means there's no failure points, there's no gaps or parts missing or creating cold spots. We work on coverage rather than thickness, and we believe that's a better approach for this type of building stock that we have in the UK. Otherwise, the danger is people are going to be sitting on pretty expensive liabilities, and we need to improve their performance, but we don't want to lose what we have. So that's what we've been working quite hard to come up with a solution for that in a natural way. The material will always remain vapor open, so we can prevent moisture ingressing into a building and protecting a building when we're using the product externally, but we can also allow vapor to pass through it. So again, a lot of properties that have been coated in something that locks moisture up and has to be removed, we've created and developed a system that avoids doing that, and we can overspray different surfaces. There's no limitation to what we can overspray. So if something is existing and working, we can just add on to that without posing any additional risk. And of course, a lot of things happen and things crack and move, and there's a lot going on in buildings that we can't always see, but Cork's very flexible. And again, that's due to the air pockets in the material, and it'll move to anything that's going on, and it'll adapt to a building. So for us, we work on quite a simple, straightforward solution. We'd love to talk to anybody about the projects that you're working on. Hopefully that just gives you a really brief insight into who we are. It'd be great to answer any questions that everybody's got at the end. And I'm now just going to hand over to Matt, who's going to give the next presentation from EcoDriver. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Boyham. I'm Sales Manager for EcoDriver. Today I'll introduce you to Built Cybernetics Group, which EcoDriver are a part of, and then I'll focus in on EcoDriver and what we do, specifically focusing on heritage buildings. Also happy to stay behind and answer any questions as well. So EcoDriver have been operating for over 20 years. Since 2023, we've been part of Built Cybernetics Group PLC. Built Cybernetics is an AIM-listed property technology group focused entirely on smart buildings and related services. We work really closely as a group and have a wealth of expertise to call upon. Within the group, we do everything from the initial idea of a building and bringing it to life, which is Orchid Swanky, the architects, and Veritech executive architects, through to the operation of a building and having systems work and communicate correctly, which is Vanti, and then optimizing a building, ensuring ongoing efficiency, and having access to all the data, which is primarily EcoDriver, and also a little bit of MapBI as well, where they do bits with like smart cities and things. Some examples of heritage buildings that we worked with on screen now. Hopefully you recognise a couple. St Bart's Church, for example, we were only there 2 weeks ago, I think, installing some metering for them on the St Bart's Hospital site, and we do all the monitoring for St Bart's Hospital. I think a couple of their buildings are heritage as well, but the church definitely is there. So focusing on EcoDriver then, EcoDriver is an energy management system. We turn building performance into accessible data to give you a true view of what's happening in the building, and so necessary actions can be taken. Essentially, it's the evidence of exactly where, when and what is consuming energy and how much energy that is. It leads to plenty of benefits. To focus in on a couple. Verified actions, for example, if there is consumption out of hours or if equipment is consuming more energy than it should, EcoDriver detects this, and you have the data then to support the changes to remove the energy waste. Generally on EcoDriver, organisations will reduce their energy consumption by 10 to 20% within the first 12 months alone. And that's purely through zero and low cost measures, i.e. removing energy waste. Measurable outcomes, so what was the impact of the changes that we've just made, or how much did we save by implementing some new technology? You've got the factual data to answer these questions all within EcoDriver. Persistent improvements, now it's it's generally quite easy to spot savings opportunities, and sometimes it's even easy to implement them. But when that focus then shifts to something else, or people move on to the next initiative, old habits or settings come back into play, and the energy savings that you've achieved can slowly be eroded again. EcoDriver detects anything like that, and so if there is a bit of a drift, it picks up on it for you, so then savings can be maintained and then built upon. How do we do this? For peace of mind, thought I'd cover this early for you. We have both permanent and removable options available to meet the requirements around each of your buildings. All equipment is non-intrusive and operates wirelessly, so there's no permanent changes made to the building or anything like that. The data that we collect, it's typically collected then in 30-minute intervals, and it's sent back to cloud for you to view instantly. Our EcoDriver Cloud, I should say. We even do this via cellular connection if you want, so we don't have to use your local internet network if that's important to some of you. In terms of common challenges that we see within heritage building, I'd say the biggest challenge is often the same as in most buildings, and that's budget. Energy is generally in the top 2 or 3 operational costs for a building, and I guess with heritage buildings, baselines are stubbornly high, so even a small percentage shift in the consumption can directly threaten funding for other areas for things such as fabric conservation or staffing or any other organisational goals. In addition to this, modern building controls are generally designed for modern spaces. So in a heritage environment, the standard automated systems can cause quite severe imbalances, so overheating in one zone while creating moisture, condensation or humidity risks in another. It can be quite challenging. We often see system conflicts as well, so without real-time visibility, systems will actively fight each other. The heating and cooling simultaneously, for example, and that's just a lot of energy waste. Disorganized ventilation leads to rooms being maybe too cold in the morning and then too hot in the afternoon and things. There's typically an impact on the ROI as well, where even what other people might consider standard energy saving upgrades would face a heritage premium, if you like, where strict building standards, specialist labour, installation restrictions will all inflate the capital cost. So a simple LED or control upgrade, for example, that would take maybe only months to pay back in a standard building can take years in a heritage building, which stalls decision making and prevents progress. So how can EcoDriver help with these challenges? So first step is that we expose the invisible energy baseline. EcoDriver pinpoints and eliminates energy waste by exposing things like out of hours running. We track heating and cooling conflicts and optimize your existing controls. It means that you get to achieve the lowest possible consumption using your existing technology before you consider changing anything else. We can overlay heating and cooling degree day data as well. So EcoDriver will automatically adjust for the outside temperature. This means that you can isolate true energy waste from standard seasonal changes, and it gives you absolute clarity on how your systems are performing. We have indoor air quality monitoring as well, where we can track humidity, moisture levels, temperature, and a couple of other bits. It means that energy efficiency doesn't have to come at the cost of conservation. You know, you're protecting delicate building fabric, and we can help protect that fabric from things like damp or mold and things, whilst you also get to maintain occupant comfort. With this data, you can then accurately rank problem areas within the building and score where to focus your efforts or finances on for maximum returns. It means that you can remove any guesswork and lead to 100% data-led decisions. It also strengthens bid applications or funding applications when there's a problem that you can evidence with the granular energy data going across the building or the site. As you do make changes, whether that's settings, behavioral changes, or maybe with new technology, the EcoDriver data gives you that before and the after picture. So you can both score the success of the project yourselves, but also I know some funding bodies require similar data to be fed back to them. So you'll have easy access to all of that as well. Once changes have been made and things are operating more efficiently, it's then absolutely essential that that becomes the normal and the place to build upon, rather than something that's achieved once and then slowly eroded over time, like we mentioned a moment ago. As things change, you know, it can be people, settings, or technology, and so on. A couple of savings examples on the screen for time purposes. I won't go through each of them, but I'm happy to share these slides. Ministry of Justice reduced their consumption by over 20% with EcoDriver. It saved them over £200,000 per year. Another site operated more Monday to Friday office hours sort of thing. We detected a few schedule conflicts and errors there. They saved at least 25% on their electricity consumption. Then a couple of others on the screen too. So once we have all of this data in EcoDriver, what do you do with it? Well, we have a couple of options. The most popular by far is Eddy, our AI bot. So Eddy stands for EcoDriver Data Intelligence Engine. And as you can see in my video example, he sits within the database and analyzes your data on your behalf. In the video, you can see I've asked him what anomalies are there in the data, and he's worked on an answer and come back with some results for you, so we can pinpoint where to look. It saves a whole lot of time for yourselves having to look for these anomalies. Eddy does it for you, but then it can also offer the guidance in the next steps of what you should do as well in order to remedy any such anomalies. We do also offer a human-led service called SEEP, which is Collaborative Energy Efficiency Program, which can go into as much detail as we require, but it's completing reporting requirements for you, analysing this data. It's a whole load of other things. It's effectively sitting in as a member of the team, if that was of interest too. Suggested next steps. So if you don't have access to this energy data, I suggest we set up a short call to discuss what you may want or need and how we go about it. If it sounds good, we can build something to pretty much any budget. So often people will start with the headline information only and something quite small, and then you can be led by the data on where you can add a little bit more information and increased granularity. We can come to site and gather information, or typically we start something remote to begin with, and then over time we can tweak the requirements to fit UN goals or budget requirements or bits like that. In summary, we have a wealth of experience working in heritage buildings. We continuously improve building performance to turn data into actions and then ongoing improvements. All of our tech is non-intrusive, and we have non-permanent and flexible technology available as well. The energy savings are significant, typically 10 to 20% saving in year one, and that's from zero and low cost measures. With this, you'll also gain data to lead your decision making as well, and support in any bids or funding applications that come up. The legwork is done by Eddy and can be done by SEEP as well, which is the human-led service, and these are available to do as much or as little of the process as you wish. First step I'd suggest is a simple Teams call, which I'm happy to arrange whenever suits yourselves. So yeah, thank you everyone. I'll hand you back over to David.
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks to all our speakers. So we've now got about 10 minutes left for sort of Q&A. So I'm just going to fire off from some of the audience Q&A that we received. The first question I've got for Ian at Vacuum Glazing Network is, how would vacuum glazing work with stained glass in, for example, a church or a public building?
Okay, thanks, David. We've had some experience with this, working with at the moment with Church of Scotland, and depending on the existing frames and things like that, normally the stained glass would be kept, and we can put alternative secondary glazing systems in behind the original, which contain our vacuum glazing, so you get all of the benefits of the vacuum glazing but in a secondary system. With easier to access glazing in a leaded style, we can look to encapsulate those into a unit where we incorporate the vacuum glazing again. This is a lot more time consuming to do, but depending on the style of the window and whether or not we have the depth in the rebate to be able to do that. But pretty much anything is possible with it. But we would recommend in churches and things like that the secondary glazing system.
Thanks, Ian. That's great. Right, now we've got a couple of questions for James at Corksole here from the audience. So the first one, James, is what type of plaster is used to plaster over the Corksole product, and does it tend to be a traditional lime, or can a modern gypsum-based product be used? Thanks.
Yeah, anything you can put over it. It depends how much of a focus is on moisture risk. So in these types of applications, we'd be building specs to present as low a risk as possible. So we would be using breathable plasters, lime-based finishes over our material. But in the majority of retrofit that we do, and it's a 2 mil skim of plaster, so it's fairly limited risk. Obviously, normal modern gypsum plasters are used very commonly as well. So you can go over our material with anything, but the question is more around what are you trying to prevent and what will the specification look like, in which case you might choose to use a breathable plaster then.
Great, thanks, James. And then second question is regarding cork sole spray application, does the product have any fire rating or classification regarding reaction to fire?
Yeah, good one. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, Euroclass B fire rated, but of course we then plaster over our material. So that's for the material just exposed, and then we're just completing a test when it's plastered over, which we anticipate will get an A rated because it's obviously covered in plaster. So we're doing an additional test there, but just the basic material as it comes is Euroclass B.
Thanks, James. Right, time for a few more questions. This is a question for Matt at EcoDriver. Matt, does the EcoDriver write to the existing building management system to make changes on the data it has found?
Thank you. No, EcoDriver specifically doesn't. We think it's important to keep that separate, and it's the evidence of exactly what's happening. However, within the group, I mentioned Vanti at the beginning, and Vanti can do that for you as well. So if that's something someone's interested in, we've got the data within EcoDriver, and then we work with Vanti to get those changes made as well.
Thanks, Matt. Right, and I've got a question now for Maria. Maria, from your perspective, what's the most important advice you would give to be aware of and prepare for when considering working with listed buildings? So that's a sort of fairly general question, I guess.
Thank you. I think it's a straightforward question. Yeah, I hope it's a straightforward answer. Just to appoint professionals, people that they have experience, they know what they're doing. And of course, you have to take advice from the conservation officers and conservation architects as well. So speak to the local authorities as quickly as possible, and also be prepared for lengthy conversations and additional costs. It's not an easy job, but it's very rewarding in the end. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Maria. Okay, I've got another one here for Ian. How do you determine whether window frames can be kept or not for any particular heritage building? Did you get that, Ian? Okay. Do you want me to repeat?
No, sorry, I was muted. My fault, David.
Right.
Sorry. Good question. Yeah, so first and foremost, we would assess the condition of the frame. If there's any rot, if it's timber or if it's a steel frame, if it's rusted, and we'd do an overall assessment of that. What we do find in a lot of sort of sash window applications is if there is any rot, it tends to be more in the sashes rather than the box itself. So we can just replace sashes with vacuum glazing in. Yeah, they pretty much most frames are fine. And what we do tend to try and do is if windows have been changed and they're not in the original style, then we try to work with conservation to put them back as they would have been previously, and try and bring back the original glory of the building wherever possible. So
great, thanks, Ian. And I've got another question here for Matt at EcoDriver. Matt, how long does it take to get set up in a business? I guess that's more of a general question, but good to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. We'd generally be able to start collecting some data straight away or within a matter of days, so we can get the main billing information from the suppliers or the meter operators. So that would give you a good start. For installations, depends on what it is that we have to work with, but I'd say maybe 6 to 8 weeks would be about average.
Great, thanks. There's a question here, a couple of questions here for the agency. Kevin, I don't know whether you're available to answer these. First one, what would owners or operators of heritage buildings gain from working with the agency?
Hi, David. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, it's really the network of expertise, as we've hopefully demonstrated, having contacts like Maria and the University of Salford, but also just being able to, understand the pool of innovation and the pool of innovators that we're working with. And already today you've seen 3 companies who offer very different solutions, but very effective solutions to anyone looking to decarbonize their buildings.
Thanks, Kevin. And just one final question for you at the agency. Is there an ideal type of end user that the agency is particularly interested in speaking with?
There isn't. And one of the reasons, and I think that's a real strength of the agency, is that, we're here to talk to any building owner of any type, whether it's a heritage building, and within that, it can be, well, the breadth of buildings really is anything to do with domestic and non-domestic buildings, and it's very varied in type. But we have no restrictions in the organisations or the operators of heritage buildings that are interested in talking to the agency.
Thanks, Kevin. I guess we're probably out of time there for Q&A, but if there are any other questions that were raised that you'd like responses to, please get in contact with us afterwards and we'll get back to you. There will be a copy available to everyone of this recording of this webinar. And if you are interested in reaching out or contacting any of our speakers today, please get in contact again and we'll put you in contact. It's in terms of wrapping up, I'd like to say a massive thanks to you, our audience, all our speakers today. Please stay in contact with us and we'll keep you updated as well of future webinars and events. In particular, before we go, we can't make a complete announcement on this, but we expect to in the next month. We will be doing work around specifically supporting the retrofit of domestic and commercial buildings in a partnership with the University of Salford. That will be an exciting retrofit-based project or program that will be running for the next 5 years. So we'll keep everyone updated of that in due course, and we hope to be able to run a webinar on that program and that project later this year. Otherwise, remains for me to say massive thanks again to everyone for attending, and we'll make a copy of this available and contact you with the location afterwards, and it's usually available on our website. Thanks very much.